It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Predictable tragedy in Afghanistan. Today, the story's about the fall of Kabul. And look, not a military expert, but in my view, this was entirely predictable. And in fact, it was predictable 20 years ago. This was what we were talking about back in 2001. That there is no way to win whatever that meant in Afghanistan. The British couldn't do it. The Soviets couldn't do it. And clearly, we didn't do it. Now, was it our hubris? Was it American exceptionalism that we're better? I don't know. But I do know that we got pushed into this in an interesting way. And we wanted it. That's the thing. We absolutely wanted it. But, today, the internets were abuzz with this story over at Politico. It was a couple of days ago that they wrote this story that this got bungled was the title. Biden's two tragic Afghanistan missteps. They're basically heaping all of this on Joe Biden's shoulders. And the thing underneath it was presented by Lockheed Martin. And immediately my mind went to all of our problems start right there. And, it goes back to Eisenhower's, be wary of the military industrial complex. We got cheerleaded into Afghanistan. And all of the people right now who are pointing fingers or trying to, my side won or whatever bizarre blame nonsense game is being played. I had one guy tell me, well, Donald Trump would have done things a lot differently. And you go, wait a second. Joe Biden's policy on Afghanistan was almost exactly the same as the former guy, but without the 3 a.m. tweets and without the lies. So anyone who's going to say, well, the former guy would have handled this much differently, you're either you're deluded at best. I'm going to go there. You're just deluded at best. Because what Trump would have done differently, and there is one thing. He would have blamed everybody else, literally everybody else, for this failure. As where Biden stepped up and took responsibility, the buck stopped here. That, honestly, refreshing to have a politician come and say, look, I take responsibility. It's ours. Now understand, this, Biden, not to blame, and not even Trump's to blame. And I would argue probably not even Obama, Bush, yeah. All of those people around that, yeah. But ultimately us. Because look, Trump wanted everybody out by May 1st, if you remember. That was the timeline, May 1st. Remember when Republicans were against timelines? But May 1st was supposedly be the agreement. Biden comes in, moves that back, negotiates till September 11th. Former guy against that, which is bizarre. And then there's this rewriting of history that's going on, and this re-remembering, and again, all of this stuff. And if anybody's listened to this program longer than a couple of months, you know that I blame us for everything. We, the voting public, we're the reason for all of this. And I blame us for this as well, because we kept voting for people who were the war hawks, kept voting for people who were going to keep pushing us into these wars and keep doing this stuff. It's us. It's on us, unquestioningly. And then we have the memories of gnats, which is why the RNC, the Republican National Committee, removed from its webpage a praising article about Donald Trump titled, "President Trump is Bringing Peace in the Middle East." And what it was describing how the former guy had continued to lead in peace talks there, while also claiming that Biden was pushing for endless war, but never mind that. But that the former guy had made a historic peace agreement with the Taliban. He was historic. We were going to get our people out of there. It was going to be great. Didn't happen, did it? Now, a lot of people are surprised at how fast Afghanistan fell. I kind of am too, considering all of the treasure, all of the blood sacrifice, all of the 20 years of work to build up a 300-person Afghan army and supply them with the best military equipment and air force, all kinds of stuff, which now, oh, by the way, the Taliban now controls. And, this is one of those moments where I go back, 20 years ago when I was against going into Afghanistan and I was against going into Iraq. Completely 100% dead set against it. But the rest of the country foaming at the mouth. Because remember, we wanted revenge. We wanted blood. We wanted retribution. This is what the American people wanted. And overwhelmingly, our elected leaders ran right into it. Because we still had on the brain how easy Iraq 1 was. That was like 2 weeks, run in, run out, done. Victory, we won. So most of the people, and I remember talking to folks at the time, we're going to go get that bin Laden and we're going to get in there and we're going to get out. And everybody had on the mind right away. You wanted the blood, wanted the vengeance, wanted the retribution. 2 weeks in and out. No problem. It's going to happen. Because our military, we were told, it's going to be just like the first Iraq War. It's going to be easy. This idea of easy war was something that we bought. Hook, line, and sinker. And it's been 20 years now. And I still remember the yellow ribbons. How many people remember the yellow ribbons? Put the yellow ribbons on your car. Support the troops. George Bush saying, be patriotic, go shopping. Where was the sacrifice? I remember hearing the stories of my grandparents. During World War II, there was real sacrifice. You couldn't get rubber for tires. There were food rations. There was mass buy-in, mass mobilization. The entire economy turned to a war economy, a war production economy. What did we get? We got better iPhones. We got to buy things on our phone, and we got to argue over masks. And I don't know. So who was fighting the war? Well, the soldiers were fighting the war, who I feel for today, because all of their bloodshed and all of the lives lost brought us to this point that the people like me who were against it and asking questions of, what does victory look like? How long are we going to be there? When we getting out? What are we doing? Nation building was never part of the equation. And Joe Biden talked about that today. It was never part of the equation. We were never going to remake Afghanistan in the American mold. Although our hubris and our American exceptionalism, we were going to do it. And this is where I'm in this moment today, because there are so many people, so many of these pundits who are pointing fingers. And there's no real one person to blame. There were bad decisions at every turn. A lot of times the difference in decision making was bad or worse. Joe Biden got a bad or worse situation. Those were his choices. I got a bad decision, stay there and for another 20 years and cost more children their lives, and or get out and have this happen, which is worse. Biden chose to follow the Trump line and get out. And I agree with him. In fact, it's one of the reasons I voted for Barack Obama, because Obama said we were going to get out. This is one of those moments where the blame isn't solely on our politicians. Now, understand, I, more than anything, want people held accountable for lying us into wars. More than anything, I want, especially the stuff that got us into Iraq, I want that investigated. But ultimately, it comes down to us. It comes down to this kind of, well, lack of responsibility. I remember right when I first started doing this show back in 2005, we were really ramping up again. There was, more talk of, we got to do more. We need surges and we need all kinds of stuff to get deeper into Afghanistan. And also into Iraq. And I remember coming on the radio and going, look, this is bad. This ramp up is getting us nowhere. No one's explained to us what we're doing. We're throwing money down a hole. We're costing people their lives. Nothing good. Explain what the end game, what's the exit? What does success look like? And I remember a guy, I was at the bank. And a guy, heard me say, talking to the bank teller, talking about the show, and I was putting money into the show account, and he followed me out in the parking lot and started poking me in the chest. And this is one of those weird moments because anybody who knows me, I am far from a pacifist. I actually agree with the Powell Doctrine. If you're going to use force, you go in and use overwhelming force, so nobody screws with you again. You use the big stick, but you walk silently. The old Teddy Roosevelt, walk silently, carry a big stick. I believe in that. The problem is we've been using the stick too much that nobody's afraid of it anymore. Because we got bogged down, just like the Soviets did, and predictably what we were going to do there. Now, some were saying the reason we were in Afghanistan had nothing to do with bin Laden, because we should have got him at Tora Bora, and I agree that the reason we were really in Afghanistan was all about the money. Much like the argument, the reason we went into Iraq both times was about the oil. And if you remember, the second time we went in, the first name that they gave it was Operation Iraqi Liberation, oil. And immediately they changed that because they go, somebody was joking around, somebody was goofing, and then they changed it to Enduring Freedom. And boy, they really know how to throw words at us to keep us stupid. And this is one of those moments for me. And look, I don't like the fact that there are going to be people dying in Afghanistan. This is a horrible outcome. But Joe Biden's right. Whether we spend a year, 5, 10, 20 more years in Afghanistan, it's not going to matter. The people of Afghanistan who we built up an army of 300,000 people with the best weaponry, with an air force and the best training, a lot of them just laid down their weapons and surrendered. The leadership in Afghanistan fled. We can do nothing more. And it is time to get out. Now, corporate America probably not happy because I still say the reason we went in, we needed the poppies. We needed the heroin. We needed the opioids. The pharmaceutical industry needed the opioids, which they have flooded our rural communities with in huge numbers. We needed the pipeline. They needed a pipeline to the Caspian Sea because, hey, we need the oil. And, of course, the minerals. Afghanistan is rich in rare earth minerals. Need those. And lithium, the other big thing that they've got, because we need batteries for the future. That, I think, is the real reason we spend so much time there. And the reason we spent so many contractors instead of actual soldiers. And, of course, we paid mightily for this. So while the next couple of days are going to be horrible, especially for the folks in Afghanistan, it is time that we get out of there. It's time that we hold not just our political leaders accountable, but we hold ourselves accountable. Because again, this is what we wanted. We voted for this war overwhelmingly. We said we wanted it. And we got what we wanted. So the finger pointing, the blame, no more. There's too much blame to go around. And it's like my mother always said, if you're pointing your finger at somebody, you got three fingers pointing back at you. And I agree with that. In this instance, we are all to blame. So when Lauren Boebert, the congresswoman from Colorado, who I hope is going to be a one-term flash in the pan and she goes back to obscurity, when she tweets out that the Taliban is building back better, which I think is low even for her, you kind of have to wonder which side the GOP's loyalties are on. Because they were giddy today with the fact that this made Joe Biden look bad. And while I don't care how it made Joe Biden look, it made our country look bad. This entire thing has made us all look bad. So there's part of me that goes, there's a learning experience here. That maybe we become, able to grasp big concepts, able to understand the history of things, maybe think before we act, maybe think before we rush into something. I don't know. Maybe have elected leaders who aren't just reality stars or wannabe reality stars or looking for the next, YouTube sensation, like Boebert, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Matt Gaetz. Maybe we elect people who actually have some intellect, some decision-making skills. They're going to make the right choices at the right moments, even when we, the people, are screaming for retribution and blood. Because what I would have done, and I said this from the beginning, you go kill bin Laden. You had to do that. That was the blood that should have happened. We should have never invaded those countries and promised to rebuild them in our image or in an image of democracy. Because it's never going to happen there. And while I feel sorry for all of the interpreters and all the people that helped us, it's time to get out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Sad day. And but inevitable in my view. Rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On The Rick Smith Show.